everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Frogs Insider podcast. I believe episode 120 for Jamie Plunkett and myself, Melissa Treewasser. We have a lot of TCU baseball to talk in this episode, Jamie. TCU bounced back after a tough weekend in Orlando to come home and beat Baylor in 2 out of 3. But the Sunday game left some questions and some teeth on the field.
One or two teeth
Maybe
scattered
3.
out there on the warning track in right field by Sawyer Strosnider, but I think he's going to be all right. We can give the people a little bit of an update on him here in just a moment. But yeah, I think it was a good weekend for TCU, regardless of the Sunday result, to come back, get a series win at home, kind of right the ship a little bit, stay in contention for first place in the Big 12, although you're running out of runway at this point to win the regular season, but finishing second or third, making sure you're in that good kind of seeding position is going to be really important. So TCU got the job done. Obviously, a sweep would have been nice, but you showed a lot on a weekend that you needed to show a lot, and so that's good for TCU baseball.
Well, before we get too deep into TCU baseball's weekend and break down those 3 games and look ahead to, like you said, the short runway remaining of the regular season, we want to take a moment to thank our partners at the Flying T Club. Flying T Club does as much for TCU athletics as anybody around the Horned Frog community, and not just in getting athletes to TCU, keeping athletes to TCU, but also giving back to the community. And even though we know that things are changing around NIL, it's still super important to commit and dedicate yourself to giving to the Flying T Club while we kind of wait to see what happens next with the House settlement and when TCU moves all of their NIL propaganda in-house here shortly this summer. Propaganda. It's all propaganda, but it's all right. It's a good kind. So we appreciate what Flying T does for our show and Jamie and myself, as well as for the great people of TCU and Fort Worth and the student athletes on our campus across every major sport in the community. We also want to take a moment to thank our friends at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. It is truly our honor and their displeasure to have us a part of the Republic of Football podcast network, where you can find not only our show talking about TCU football and every other sport under the TCU sun, but also sports from every Division I football program in the state of Texas. So whether that's in-conference opponents, future out-of-conference opponents, or you just want to poke your head in and see how crazy things are in College Station or Austin, you can find a show that will fulfill that fancy for you on the Republic of Football Network. So we appreciate being a part of Dave Campbell's and appreciate that they have yet to kick us out.
Absolutely. Shout out to DCTF and the Flying T Club. More on the Flying T Club later in the episode. Melissa, let's start with Friday night, because it was a great win for the Horned Frogs to open the series against Baylor. It's something that we've become accustomed to on Friday nights, because we could probably rename Fridays in TCU baseball land as Tommy LaPour Appreciation Days for the way that he has been pitching the baseball over the last 6 weeks of the season. He posted his career long for an outing, 8.2 innings, 8 2/3 innings, was 1 out away from a complete game. Would have been TCU's first complete game since another former Wichita State transfer did the same thing last season in Peyton Tolley. He struck out, I believe it was 8. He threw 123 pitches. His 111th pitch was 99 miles an hour. His 113th pitch was 100 miles an hour, as he saved his biggest velo pops on the gun for the 9th inning of work. But TCU won this baseball game 7-2. Obviously, he ran into a little trouble there in the 9th, which is why he didn't get the complete game. But Tommy LaPour posted his 6th consecutive quality start. And for those that don't know what a quality start is...
Which included Tommy LaPour before Friday night.
Correct. And
you did introduce that stat to him.
Yes. So he did not know what a quality start was either. Totally get it. I think the adrenaline was still running a little bit for him. But a pitcher who goes at least 6 innings and allows 3 earned runs or fewer, that's considered a quality start. And as Kirk Sarlo said after Friday's win, quality starts are what get you paid in Major League Baseball. So Tommy LaPour has put together 6 in a row of those. He has 8 this season. He is the first TCU pitcher, Melissa, to log 6 straight quality starts since a guy named Nick Lodolo did that in 2019. Pretty good company.
Yeah. Nick,
for
did you see Kirk
Herbstreit
tweeting about Nick Lodolo today?
I did, and it was weird because I don't like Kirk
Yeah.
Herbstreit, but I
Loved
love
Nick.
Nick Lodolo. Obviously, he just had a son. Congratulations to him, and he threw the hell out of the ball for the Reds.
Yeah.
9 strikeouts and 7 innings of work. Yeah. Great work for
Yeah.
Lodolo there.
And great work for Tommy. There's just few guys in this world that are easier to root for than Tommy LaPour, who, like you mentioned, had quite a bit of an adrenaline rush still going. Having him and Cole Cramer be the post game was an experience that, like, I wish I could share with the world what it felt like to be in that room with
Yes.
those two fellas. There's just a lot. There's a lot going on there that's all very pleasant and enjoyable. Just great dudes. Just total dudes.
Total dudes,
Total
best
bros.
of friends. They're roommates on the road. We learned in that press conference on Friday night, and so it was very fun to have them both in there. Obviously, Cole Cramer has been doing incredible things for TCU all season, both with his glove and the bat. He hit his 3rd home run of the year on Friday night, a little pull side home run into
Called
the
it.
TCU bullpen. Said he called it in the dugout before it happened. We know that Cole Cramer is so good at going up the middle into right field, kind of that opposite field hitting ability, and it's been a blessing for TCU to have a guy who's capable of doing that in any at bat this season. But it was also good to just for him to keep opponents honest when they're scouting him with a little bit of pop to left field. So he hit a home run there in the 8th inning that pushed TCU's lead to 7-1. At that point, TCU jumped on top of Baylor early in this game, scored 4 runs there in the bottom of the first.
And
grew
didn't
their
need a lot
lead.
of hits to do it.
Didn't need a lot of hits. There was a lot of command issues from Baylor starter Mason Green, who missed the first couple of months of the season with an injury he suffered in fall camp, had only thrown 5 innings of work coming into this weekend and didn't even get out of the first inning. And then Baylor kind of just threw guys out of the bullpen like 3 or 4 more times after that, tried to get to the finish line on Friday and salvage the series the next 2 days. So really nice Friday start. Great work from Tommy LaPour once again. The bats got going. They were patient at the plate. It all looked really good. And then they came back on Saturday, and not only did they look good on the field because of their performance, but Melissa, my God, those Ranas Cornudas jerseys are just absolutely spicy year after year now.
Gorgeous. Just the purple this year. I mean, they've all been good. This year's might be my favorite. Just beautifully, just a deep purple, just gorgeous energy. Love to see it. The guys played with a little bit extra juice. The fans were a little bit extra into it. And we had some incredible entertainment between innings from a current TCU student who did some Mexican heritage dancing on top of the dugout, which was super, super cool. So just a really awesome day. And great to see TCU play well again. Once again, I mean, they took advantage of Baylor not being able to find the zone consistently, a couple of errors, and it seemed like they came up with a timely hit, which is something that they have not been able to consistently do this season. So it was nice to see them deliver, and also nice to see Cademan Parker, kind of come in and look like Cademan Parker.
Yeah, his 6 innings of work, had the command of all 3 pitches, struck out 4. He's not going to be a guy that really racks up the strikeouts every outing, but his command in the strike zone was so much better than we've seen from him at times, and he was throwing strikes. 94 pitches over those 6 innings of work, just gave up 2 hits and the 1 earned run, 1 walk to 4 strikeouts, 1 hit batter as well. Really good to see him get that deep into games, and it was a curious thing when he came out after the 6th inning of work, because TCU at that point in time was winning 7-1 already. Yeah. And so the question there was, is Kirk still going to go to Braden Sloan with a 6-run lead, or is he going to go somewhere else in the bullpen, save Sloan for maybe a Sunday affair if you need him then? And the answer was no. He's going to Braden Sloan. And we saw not the best version of Braden Sloan on Saturday. He gave up a couple of runs. He really struggled with his command. I think that, pitches like that changeup tend to be more effective earlier in the season before the book is really out on it. I think teams are starting to adjust to it now. So it'll be really interesting to see how Braden can start to counterpunch, maybe with that curveball a little bit more, trying to squeeze the grip on the fastball a little bit differently, get some more run or some different movement on that to just keep people honest in the batter's box, because it does look like they're starting to square up on the changeup just a little bit more. He gave up 4 hits and 3 earned runs in just an inning and 2/3 of work on Saturday afternoon.
Well, and he came out and his first 2 pitches just missed badly, and he wasn't locked in right from the very, and he's a guy too, and I wonder if this plays into it, that he does so well in pressure situations. And so I don't know if coming in with a 6-run lead, if he was quite as locked in as we have seen him otherwise. But, I think we think a lot about hitters being in slumps. And pitchers can be in slumps too. And it seems like I think you're absolutely right in that, because he has such one singular dominant pitch, that as batters start to figure that out, he absolutely needs to counterpunch back. And then I also wonder too if he's just in a little bit of a slump. And the combination of the book being out and there being so much film on him, along with him just not having his best stuff, it's been. I mean, even I think it was the Kansas series that he came in and he battled and he ended up pitching pretty well, but he really had to battle through every inning. He just hasn't been super sharp, and that's okay. He's a veteran guy. He's been around this team a long time. He's played a lot of college baseball. He's been in a lot of high leverage moments. I'm very confident by the time that the Big 12 tournament comes around that he'll be locked back in and giving us the kind of performance that we expect from him. And TCU cannot win a Big 12 regular season or conference tournament or advance deep into the postseason without having the A version of Braden Sloan. I have zero doubt that that's what they'll get when the time comes.
I agree with that. And it was also good to see someone come in and pick him up when he didn't have his best stuff, because that's what Luis Rodriguez did, coming in there with 2 outs in the 8th inning and getting out of that jam with a strikeout, then coming back on for the 9th and being as dialed as I've seen Luis dialed this season, striking out the side there in the 9th inning to clinch that series victory for the Frogs with the 8-4 win. Really good outing for TCU again. They left a lot of runners on base this weekend. I believe it was 33 total runners left on base in the 3-game series with Baylor. That didn't bite them in the butt on Friday or Saturday, but it did bite them in the butt a little bit on Sunday. Going to get into that game here in a second, but I do want to shout out a couple guys because that Saturday game was a big one for a few different reasons, not the least of which is that Sawyer Strosnider, who had kind of been on a little bit of a slide there for the last week or so, had a 4-hit game. Really good to see him start to swing the bat well. He went opposite field. He stayed close. He was very patient. He didn't chase pitches out of the zone. He had started to kind of expand the zone and maybe press a little bit at the plate, so it was good to see that. The same thing with Noah Franco, who had a 3-for-5 day with 3 RBIs. Stayed closed, went opposite field, had no problems with the off-speed stuff. Chased a little bit on Sunday again and didn't have his best day at the plate, but same with Braden Sloan. Sawyer and Noah at the plate are going to need to be Sawyer and Noah at the plate for TCU to accomplish what it wants to accomplish this season. So that was a really nice Saturday from 2 guys who had maybe been kind of grinding through it a little bit and gutting it out to have some of the work they've been doing show up on the scorebook.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see those 2 freshmen, both of whom theoretically could be getting ready for prom right now. It's not that far removed. And Noah reclass, Noah would legitimately be getting ready for prom right now. But to see those guys that are that young have that kind of maturity to make midseason adjustments or late season adjustments, to continue to take coaching, to continue to figure it out. Both of those guys started so slow. They both got absolutely scorching red hot, and now they're coming back to earth a little bit. And so to not just, throw in the towel, get frustrated, do any of those things, baseball's such a mental game. And to see a couple of young guys have the mental fortitude to keep grinding out at the point of the season that starts to feel really, really long for kids that are fresh out of high school. It's really impressive. It speaks a lot to their makeup, both physically and mentally, and just the kind of people that they are. So we have been so fortunate to see those 2 dudes and so many freshmen on the mound too be as successful as they've been. But man, it's hard not to think about how much better this is going to get too. It's going to be really fun. That's why it's so important to try to make a run this year, because you never know, but B, get that experience, get those high value games, get them opportunities and big moments under the light, so that it doesn't feel new to them when TCU's playing for national championship in a year and a couple of months, which is my full expectation.
It's the hope and the dream, and this is why Saarloos has been so persistent about saying over and over and over, these freshmen are going to continue to play. Because at this point in the season, we're talking about the end of April now, they're not really freshmen anymore. Yeah. And that's because they've gotten the requisite experience needed to be guys who can make contributions when it matters most. Let's take a quick break, Melissa, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about Sunday's game, an injury update, and a little conversation about an ejection. Hey, Frog fans, Jamie Plunkett here, one of the hosts of Frogs Insider, and I wanted to take a second and talk to you about our presenting sponsor, the Flying T Club. The Flying T Club is an incredible organization. It's TCU's NIL collective, the only NIL collective for TCU, and they support over 130 student athletes wearing purple, loud and proud. They partner these student athletes with organizations in and around the city of Fort Worth, giving back to the Fort Worth community, making our community stronger and better. If you want to learn more about how you can support the Flying T Club's efforts and by proxy support TCU student athletes, all you've got to do is go to flyingtclub.com. That's flyingtclub.com and check out the different ways that you can get involved with that organization. I've known the folks over at the FTC for a really long time, and they're incredible people. They're dedicated Horned Frogs. They bleed purple through and through, and they want to get to know you and see how you can partner with them to make the best of TCU student athletes' lives while they're on campus and in Fort Worth. The work they do stretches well beyond TCU's campus as well, partnering with multiple nonprofit organizations. If you have any opportunity to give, I would encourage you to do so over at flyingtclub.com. All right, Frog fans, we are back. That was a quick word from our friends over the Flying T Club. Thanks again to them for being sponsors of the show. Melissa, Sunday didn't go well for the Horned Frogs for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, they lost 6-3. They could not complete the sweep against Baylor, which is always disappointing, but you're kind of playing with house money at that point. Sweeps are really nice. They help you a ton in conference standings. But also, you came away with the series win on Saturday, and things just did not break TCU's way in any regard on Sunday in this loss to Baylor. First and foremost, TCU gets out on top 1-0 to start this baseball game with some of the most incredible small ball that I think I've seen from TCU since I've been paying attention to TCU baseball. Carson Bowen leads off with a double. Sawyer Strosnider, I believe unprompted, lays down a bunt. I think he was trying to bunt for a hit, personally, because I know Bill Mosiello didn't call for a sacrifice bunt in the first inning. There's no shot that happened. But Strosnider gets a bunt down, is out at first base, but he moves Bowen to third. And then first pitch, Cole Cramer, the guy himself, flies out to center, sac fly. Carson Bowen comes home to score. Frogs take the early lead. At that point, you're like, all right, well, hey, they showed they have that club in their bag.
Frog ball,
at the very
baby.
least, right? It's another version of frog ball. But things started to kind of get a little shaky here in the middle innings. Trevor Baumler got the start on Sunday. He looked great in the first inning. He does this thing where once he throws one or two pitches out of the zone or doesn't really have, he has something not go his way, he starts to really kind of grind and struggle a little bit. And that's typical for a lot of freshmen. But the raw talent for Trevor Baumler is there. His fastball was up to 95 again. He had a nice bite on the slider. Curveball looked really good. It's just we got to find ways at this point to kind of overcome some of the challenges, because you're not going to have a perfect outing every single time. And so in the third inning, Baylor puts up 4 runs. They don't really hit the ball very hard. They got a couple seeing eye singles, an infield single because he couldn't quite handle a bunt past him at first base. And things just started to kind of tumble from there. Baylor puts up 4 runs. He's out of the game after 3 innings. And Mason Brassfield comes on and does a fantastic job, finishes the game, 6 innings of work, 6 strikeouts, looks really good in that reliever role. Another trustworthy long reliever that Saarloos can call on when it matters. But the bats never showed up. 9 runners left on base, couldn't string hits together outside of an inning or two, and just kind of went silent to end the series. And it's something that we've seen from TCU a couple times this year. And it's a trend that, once you get into that third game of a regional or third game of a super regional, you're going to still have to put your best foot forward. And that's just one of those things that I think that inconsistency, largely in part because of the freshmen just growing up. Also, I think, and I said this on a episode a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I think Sundays are where TCU feels the impact of not having Ben Abelt the most. Because if you had Abelt either on Saturday at this point and then Cademan on Sunday, that's a whole different looking rotation than Kirk still having to kind of scramble and figure out who the guy is going to be week in, week out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that identifying a consistent third starter is absolutely critical at this point. And really, you're getting to the point where you need a third starter and a guy who can at least give you a kind of that opener type role in a fourth game, potentially, especially if you've kind of fallen out of probably the one seed in the Big 12 tournament. I do want to say, and it's tough because we've seen this inconsistency so consistent that I'm willing to just say this has just kind of been TCU's Achilles heel. But I also do think you have to give some weight to watching your very talented, very well-liked teammate go crashing at 100 miles an hour into a fence and spreading his teeth all over the field. And then also, you mentioned Los got tossed today, and sometimes that can be a thing that fires a team up, but you have to wonder when you have a team that's carried by so many freshmen and sophomores if maybe that's more of a net negative than a net positive.
Yeah, this is true, and we can get into that a little bit because Sawyer Strosnider took quite the tumble in right field trying to chase down a hard hit ball off the bat of Hunter Simmons. And this is when, in that third inning, things started to kind of slip away from the Frogs. They have 2 runners in already, so Baylor leads 2-1, 2 runners on base. And Simmons hits an absolute laser opposite field towards the wall and right. And Sawyer Strosnider, full extension, full dead sprint, barely misses. He's inches away from catching this baseball and making the second out of the inning. And instead, he goes quite literally face first at full sprint into the fence in right field. I initially thought, watching from the press box, that he hit one of the beams and came down grabbing his shoulder. And we know that he had been dealing with a shoulder injury earlier this year, so that was my initial concern. And then, we looked over at the TV in the press box, and he's holding his face while the play is still happening, and that's when you started to think, okay, something different is going on here. Obviously knocked out a few teeth, had a huge laceration on kind of the bridge of his nose down towards his mouth. On his face as well, jogged off the field with his hat covering his face and blood just kind of all over the place. Fortunately for him, there was an oral surgeon in the stands who made his way down to TCU's dugout to help him out. Got Sawyer and his parents all loaded up and took them over to his practice and started oral surgery pretty quickly to get the teeth replaced and get some stitches on that laceration on his face. It does seem at this point like Strosnider has managed to miss anything more significant than what is already somewhat significant, losing a couple teeth and having a pretty big cut on your face. So as far as I understand, we'll see how he feels once he gets a couple days removed from the injury, right? But it feels like Sawyer Strosnider is still going to be in the mix at some point soon.
Yeah, let's choose. Shout out to the oral surgeon in the stands. For one, shout out to, I think it was Anthony Silva that went and picked up his teeth. Yep. Is that correct? Shout out to Anthony. That's been a really, really great teammate. Yeah.
Chef Tony, what you gonna cook up with those?
I really wish you hadn't said that. And also, I think shout out to the fact that Sawyer Strosnider, we learned, had already lost a tooth. So he already had a fake tooth up in there. But hopefully, look, we'll talk about it, but you've got UTA on Tuesday. You've got a little bit of a revenge game that you better hope TCU can beat UTA. Give the kids some time off before a big, one of your last couple of Big 12 series here this next weekend. But that's got hurt. I mean, if you haven't seen it, guys, go to our Instagram or our TikTok. And Jamie posted a clip of Kirk's interview with the video of Sawyer going. He just literally went full speed, face first into the kind of the wire fence between those posts. But thank God he didn't hit one of those stanchions because it could have been a lot worse than it was, even though it's going to be pretty uncomfortable for the kid for a while, I have a feeling.
I have a feeling it will be. But when you are as athletic as Sawyer Strosnider and as fast as Sawyer Strosnider, sometimes the confines of a baseball stadium simply cannot contain you, right? We've seen this with Chase Brunson at times as well, running into the fence at full speed. He's
got the padded one back there, though. That's cheap.
This is true. He does have the padded wall, so Chase, you've got it easy out there, big guy. But no, I mean, when you move as quickly as some of these bigger dudes do these days, you're going to have the opportunity for collisions. And so, again, glad he didn't get more hurt. Obviously, it's still a serious injury, and we hope he bounces back quickly. But, Sawyer Strosnider showing off his athleticism even when it means that a few teeth aren't in your head anymore.
Nelson Cruz could never.
Come on. Why? Whatever. The Rangers won in 23. I don't care. I will note, though, Two things about Chase Brunson on that play. First of all, he wasn't a spectator.
Yeah.
So he sees Sawyer go down, sees the ball rolling away, and he was already on his horse getting over to the ball, gets the throw in. Brody Green makes the relay, and they catch Hunter Simmons in a rundown for the second out of the inning. Was almost an inside the park home run if it weren't for Brunson's kind of wherewithal to keep playing baseball even in that moment. So that was really good. And then he looked down and saw Sawyer's teeth on the ground and immediately ran away.
Yeah.
And so he did not pick up the teeth.
No.
Cole Cramer was also in the vicinity. He did not pick up the teeth.
Not pick up the teeth.
And so Anthony Silva was the man who stepped up to pick up the teeth and put them in a cup and bring them back to the dugout again.
Big weekend for Tony. Big weekend for Tony.
Big weekend for Tony.
Around.
Hey, he had a really nice double
Yeah.
on Saturday, some insurance, and then helped a teammate out by getting his incisors off the field when he needed to. There in the third inning on Sunday. And let's before we get out of here, I do want to talk a little bit about Kirk Saarloos. First ejection of the year happened in the bottom of the sixth inning. Jack Bell appeared to foul tip a ball into the dirt that would have been strike three if he swung and missed. From where I was sitting, the foul tip was pretty clearly audible. I think from anywhere in the stadium, it was pretty clearly audible. On the broadcast, I went back and listened. Pretty audible on the TV broadcast as well. And Baylor's catcher did not catch the ball, right, which would have made it a strike three still. And yet the home plate umpire called Jack Bell out.
We saw this happen in reverse on Saturday, too, when it benefited Baylor.
Yep, absolutely. And so Saarloos comes out and asks why it's strike three, and home plate umpire, I believe it's, I can't remember who it was at this point, said that Jack Bell did not, in fact, foul tip the ball, that it was just a swing and a miss strike three, and so it didn't matter if Baylor's catcher caught the ball. Kirk appealed to the other three umpires, who all agreed with the home plate umpire that the ball was not foul tipped, even though the side 90-degree angle replay shows incredibly clearly that Jack Bell tipped this ball into the ground. Kirk continued to argue. Was really getting after the second base umpire, who was the home plate umpire on Friday, who Kirk had given an earful about the strike zone a couple of times. So there was already some tension building from earlier in the weekend. And at the end of the day, the home plate umpire said enough is enough, threw Kirk out of the game. It's his first time being ejected this season. If y'all recall, he'd gotten tossed a couple times early in his head coaching career at TCU and has since really kind of, I think, worked harder to maintain a level of calm to the point where he's not getting tossed out of games. But I think this was a justified ejection for Kirk Sarlo to get tossed out of this one, because I think he was in the right, and he was expressing himself in a manner that would lead others to believe that he was right as well.
Well, and he knows he's got Mo in the dugout too, and
True.
Like that's it's pretty good to have a guy that you trust that implicitly, who's basically like having a second head coach in the room, and that's not why TCU lost. TCU just didn't do a lot of the things they needed to do today. But sometimes, like I said, like I've gotten tossed out of a game or two in my years of coaching on purpose to fire up a team that needed a spark. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Today was one of those that it just didn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because obviously Mosiello takes over kind of acting head coach duties in those situations. Dave Lawn takes over pitch calling because Kirk Saarloos calls pitches now this season. So Dave Lawn, pitching coach, was back calling pitches for Mason Brassfield over those last 3 innings of work, and Mason Brassfield over those last 3 innings of work just looked great. Yeah. And so that was really nice to see Lonnie kind of pick up where Kirk left off with him. And they didn't miss a beat in that regard. And so that's a testament to the staff that Saarloos has put together. And he will not serve any kind of suspension for this ejection, so that's important to note. He will be available to coach on Tuesday against UTA. Some weather in the area, though, projected for Tuesday.
It's April in Texas.
We'll see if that game gets played or if TCU goes without a midweek game for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But Melissa, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider, presented by the Flying T Club. Thank you all for hanging out and listening. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts just by searching Frogs Insider. You can go to the YouTube channel and subscribe there as well, where you can watch this video, see press conferences, and all the likes just by searching Frogs Insider on YouTube. Tell us in the comments, either in the podcast or on the YouTube channel, how many teeth would you have lost if you had run into the fence?
My jaw would be on the other side. It would have gone right. Like, did you see that lady reacting? Like the poor woman in the back? Like,
bad news.
Yeah, she would have had to run away if that had been. My body would have I would have gone right through the whole fence, the whole thing.
Just like cut into little diamond shapes.
Yes, bad horror movie. Yeah, just no. Well, actually, that's a lie. I can't move that fast. I would have bounced right off and just stayed down. I would still be down in
Just
right
army
field.
crawling back towards the dugout.
No, not even. They'd have to. The field crew would have to come and get me on one of their little carts and roll me back in. That's the. I never would have recovered.
I wouldn't have either. And I'll tell you, I was as heated as Kirk probably on that foul tip ejection as well. I think if I had ever been a head coach in my life and that had happened to me, a similar situation would have occurred and I would have been taking an early shower. Anyways, she's Melissa Treebwasser. I am Jamie Plunkett. We're going to end this episode now, and we will talk to you later this week. Go Frogs.
Frogs.